Up here on the second chain, we've kind of been hanging out in this area here for the last couple of weeks, maybe a little longer than that. Been fishing lots of these reefs, fishing the shoreline, fishing Ayers Island, fishing Ayers Dugout, all this shell. The consistent thing that's been going on, that's been happening now for good 2 months, is a lot of these fish are on shell bars, shell reefs, shell pads. In up here in Ayers, Mesquite as well. You've got lots of reefs that you can fish. Even over in San Antonio Bay, we've been hitting some of those as well. But primarily been kind of hanging right here in Ayers. It's been pretty productive for us for the most part. We've been working. We'll work these reefs early until we're getting to roughly 9, 10 o'clock ish when that sun's getting up a little higher. You want to be able to have another area that you can have a pretty decent little drop off. It doesn't have to be 9, 10 feet drop off. Just something deeper water, 3 to 5 feet. When you start to get to that mid morning, mid afternoon time frame, 1 o'clock latest. Water temps, in the shallows gets pretty warm. So what these fish are doing is we're finding them early on the shell, pretty shallow, working up against the shell bars, shell reefs, whatever you're fishing, however you're fishing it. And then again, when we get into that mid-morning, close to afternoon time frame, they're starting to drop off into that 3 to 5 foot of water, and that's pretty typical for this time of year because water temps are starting out anywhere from 85 to 88 degrees, depending on which estuary you are fishing. So you have to take that into consideration. And of course, as we get into the afternoon hours, and depending on how much sunshine that the water's getting, it'll touch 90, maybe get into the 90s, depending on where you're at. But that said, so that's kind of been our pattern. That's been what we've been doing, how we've been working these areas like that. Hard packed sand as well, grass, all common denominators. A lot of this area up in here has that. Right over here on Ayers Point, you can get that there. Hard packed stuff. And then of course we haven't been in the back lakes too much this past week, just simply because of our water levels have been super low. So it really hasn't worked out for us. So that's why we've really targeted the edges of the reefs and the shell bars like that, and then of course the deeper drop-offs later in the day. Lots of areas, lots of opportunity like that lay around up here. So when you work these areas, keep all that kind of stuff in mind. So the main things that we've been throwing, we're in a transition moon, wild card days. So we've been throwing all 4 sizes. We've been throwing a 6-inch bait, throwing a 5-inch bait, throwing a 4-inch, 3-inch, lots of different size baits, lots of profile sizes. Burner shad and the original size in the down south has been pretty productive for us. The knock and tail has been pretty productive for us. Double D has done pretty well. Not one particular bait's been super better than the other. All the profile sizes have been pretty consistent as far as what the fish have wanted. But we've just changed it up because there's certain little things about the baits that are, if you look at them, they're just little small details about them that make a difference, especially when it's not a super great bite, which it has not been. It's been very light. It's not super aggressive. Now, the better fish that we've caught that's been like out of the slot, that's been in the, anywhere from like 21 to 24 inches, any of those kind of fish that we've caught in this past week, they have been pretty aggressive with the bite, but the majority of the fish that was caught in the, in the slot in the 15 to 20 inch range have not been just knocking a home run with it. They, it's not been just super aggressive. It's been pretty subtle for the most part. So that's why we've kind of tried to finesse a little bit with the smaller size bait, mid-size bait. So, in the original size, watermelon red, white ice, bone diamond, big papa, twisted tea have been good in the original size. The one flavor that's been pretty good for us in the burner shad has been the firecracker, because a lot of the water this week, we hadn't had super big winds other than the little pop-up storms that happen. And we've had a couple of those over the days, and that's where your wind will come from. But once those storms pass, that wind dies back off. So, but we've been throwing that, and that water's been clean for that fact. So, but we've been throwing the burner shad and the firecracker. The white ice has been good. Those two flavors in that size bait have been pretty good for us. Throwing the Little John as well. Purple Demon has been pretty good. Watermelon red has always been pretty consistent for us in that as well. Golden red glitter have been good. Kitchen sink has been good. So those flavors, and that's the same size. Durable bait as well. The knock and tail main flavor there has been pretty good for us. Has been Rogue. Hadn't thrown the other two flavors, the heavy metal and the greenback. Just pretty much stuck with Rogue. Has been pretty good. Then threw some Double D, different flavors there, and that's been pretty much our attack. That's been the game plan. That's what we've kind of gone after, and it's been pretty consistent for us. Not great, but consistent. We've caught solid fish. The bite frame kind of dies off, and you can just start kind of cherry picking here and there and just kind of scratch one out here, scratch one out there. But our main thing that we focused on, and I've said it hundreds of times, is majors and minors, man. That's when our most productive time frame is during that time, is in and around that major or that minor. Now, the one thing that did show its head early in the majors or the minor, what we were fishing, the bite frame was not very long. You had a 2.5 hour window, and that bite may have lasted 20 minutes. So we did notice that. So it just wasn't super long. A lot of that has to do with just the heat, the water temperature. So you really need to get your fish and find them as early as you can, and then just kind of pay attention to what's going on. That's why we downsized even the smaller stuff, because they're not wanting to eat as much. So we give them something smaller to eat to kind of entice them to still want to play with us a little bit later in the day. But continue to work these areas like that. Plenty of bait working in there. Water temps are warming up throughout the day, so you may want to be on the water a little bit earlier than what you have been. So weather patterns are going to be what they're going to be. Always keep an eyeball on what the tropics are doing, because we're in that hurricane time of the year. So these things seem to be pretty active this year. So just remember that. Plan your day, and be safe on the water. Shell. That is the common denominator. That is what you're going to want to fish. That's where you're going to want to lay out your plans for in the morning, and then you can kind of try and transgress from there. You've got cedar dugout over and around here. You've got a little bitty reef that's right here in Carlos, which is really good. It's got two good little sides to it, and it's sneaky good. A lot of people don't fish it because they don't worry about it. They're trying to get to cedar or the dugout and fish all the shell that's here. We fished those as well. But I like that little reef that's right back in here. It does a good job for us. It's produced fish pretty consistently. The couple of days that we were on it this past week, it was pretty good. We caught fish on it, some decent fish here and there. But it's the same pattern held. Once we got into our bite frames and what we were doing, the bite did not last very long, 20 to 30 minutes at best on any given day. And if you did not capitalize on catching your fish in and around that time frame, whenever it was, you were going to have to scratch and find more of your fish if you have not found them by that point in time. The shoreline over here in Carlos, this one here has been pretty decent. There's been some fish holding on it. Then, of course, you've got shell out here on the point. You got two little shell pads that are right down here. And then, of course, you got the fingers of Carlos that are here. And you got the cut through and the old ICW. You got that big, long shell bar that runs back into here. And you got deep water access that's around that. So it's great kind of a plan if you work that type of area early. And then when you start getting into that mid-morning, late day time frame, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, this area right through here is not a bad location to try to work, because you got 20 foot of water that's hanging right there off of that shell bar. So just a great location to try to work and see. Now, if you're going to do that, if you happen to be in that area and you want to fish that, you may want to have your secondary group of jig heads. If you're going to work that deeper drop, maybe put you some 3/16, 8ths, whatever, instead of a 3/16, or instead of a 16th ounce, something a little bit heavier, maybe even a quarter, to work that, just to see where the fish are hanging. They may be hanging down in 8 foot water, 7 foot of water. You don't know till you work it. But just throwing that out there. So you got all that here, and you've got Dunham, this whole little inside shoreline right here, depending on what your storms are doing. Like I said, we had a lot of these little pop-up storms, so it changed our wind directions from day to day. So you kind of have to just kind of align yourself with that, working all that here. Super hard-packed sand and grass that's on this shoreline. A lot of bait there. We've caught some few fish that's on it. Again, not great numbers, but quality fish. So we'll take quality over quantity any day, and that's pretty much what we've kind of located in this area up here. It's been good. There's been a lot of areas in there that's holding fish. Some are in that smaller range, that 13 to 15. But like I say, the better fish we have caught have been in that 18 to 21 inch range. So it's been, and they've been solid. again, a lot of these fish are still, what we've noticed, they're still holding a lot of eggs. They're just still, real thick and chunky and fat, and you can tell unless they've just eaten a mullet or something, which is pretty obvious when that takes place. But you can tell the old bellies are still kind of hanging down there, so a lot of fish are still hanging on to their eggs. So just something to consider. If you don't need them, throw them back. Let those mama fish hatch those eggs, so we can just help keep replenishing our estuaries as naturally as possible. But that said, you got all this area in here that we're really working and concentrating on the shell, working off that hard packed sand. Again, the same flavors, working around the major or the minor, what's going on. Like I say, we're in a transition moon right now. We'll be in a full moon probably in another 4 to 5 days, or start that process into those 10 days that surround that full moon. And just kind of see how that transverses to that direction. So again, down south lures, we've been throwing the burner shad, original size. We threw the supermodel. We threw the big smooth. That's the 4 sizes that down south has there, and they've all been somewhat productive for us to a degree. I think I still lean toward the original and the burner shad size when the bite gets really tough, because those fish are just not really super hungry at that point. So you try to entice them with something a little bit smaller than something big. But we'll throw the bigger baits early, see if we can't find the better fish with that. And then, of course, in the knock and tail again, the Rogue has been the consistent one for us. I didn't throw the greenback or the heavy metal very much at all. There's another one that they've come out with. It's Morning Glory. So it's a pretty cool color. So when you find those clear water conditions, or maybe just a little bit of stain, it's a really great flavor to throw as well, and it's in that 4-inch bait. Double D has been pretty good. I've caught a few fish off of it. Have not thrown the top water very much at all, if any. Pretty much just staying with our plastics and suspended baits primarily this past week. Again, working the 16th ounce jig heads unless you're going to fish in that deeper water, that starting in that 4 foot to 10 foot of water, on these deeper edges, like on the ICW when you're working that, or other guts in passes that have that little bit deeper water. You may want to put that little bit heavier jig head up to a 1/4 ounce if you so choose. Another option as well, the fingers of Carlos have been pretty decent for us, just working the guts. But again, the tide's falling out on us, so your deeper water edges and stuff like that later in the day are going to be your target areas. Early morning, a little bit shallower up against the shell, and that's the kind of stuff that you want to watch and look for. Nukem Bend has been pretty well for us as well. We've been fishing the deeper edges again with our, the water has dropped out after Burl pushed through there, which it really was kind of nothing for us in this area. Sorry for the folks up in the Galveston, Houston area, but down here for us, we missed a lot of all that stuff there. So we really didn't get the tidal push that we anticipated, especially not like we got from Alberto. Alberto just pushed a ton of water in here. This one did not. Burl didn't do much, a whole lot for us. It did raise it a little bit, but once that water dropped back out, we had lower tides. So, we would work kind of mid-level here on Nukem, work all this shoreline there, work out the deeper edge, and that's where we found our fish, was in the deeper water. And, you got the hard packed sand, you got grass, it's all mixed in this area here, all the way down to the point. We even worked around on the inside of the point there a little bit. Of course, there's a little bit more squishiness that's on the inside when you get here, so we didn't really focus too terribly much on the inside there. We did fish it, I think, once just to see, if we still had some fish. Caught a few redfish that were hanging in there. Of course, when you get back down here, you get a little bit more shell that's around here in those mouths and those edges of the shoreline on the inside of Nukem. And we caught a few trout around that, but nothing to really write home about production-wise. But most of our production came out on the front side here. Like I said, we had light winds all week. So unless you had one of the storms that popped up on you, and that's where your wind came out of, so you really could manage that with really not too much problem. If you just had to get around the storm until it passed, then you got right back, calm back down. But we just really worked this outside edge here on the hard packed sand and the grass. Just working those. Again, same flavors, same time frames, working the majors and minors, kind of aligning our day with when that was and when it was going to be. And so that's when most of our production came from. Again, same flavors that I've mentioned already. Twisted Tea, Papa Pearl, White Ice, Bone Diamond. White Ice and Bone Diamond have been pretty good for us this past week. Just really thinking back, a little bit more production with those two particular flavors. And then Twisted Tea, and then, of course, Firecracker did good for us in the burner shad. And then, of course, in the mirror lure, watermelon red's been, it's been good, consistently good. No matter when you put that on, you can catch fish with it. So that was thrown some this week. And, of course, the bigger versions of the Down South in the Big Smooth and the Supermodel and different flavors there. But pretty much sticking with that same color pattern. Again, your water kind of dictates what the color you're going to throw. If it's pretty clean, we're going to throw a lot of color. If it's dirtied up, we're going to throw darker colors. I think we had one day we had pretty good little thunderstorms that built up on us that came rolling in that kind of dirtied up the water. So we went to something a little bit darker there, and even added a little chartreuse, believe it or not. So that was shook in there too, because that water kind of got dirty pretty bad. So anyhow, with that mindset and that theme, and that's what our pattern was for the whole week, we pretty much stayed on this outside here. I think we worked the lap reef that was kind of hanging out here, what's left of it, just a little bit, nothing production-wise that was on it on that particular day that we worked. So, but it's still there, still opportunities, still hard-packed sand and shell in those areas, deeper water surround that. So that has been our pattern. That will continue to be our pattern when we move into this upcoming week.